Question everything, trust nothing, guys. Welcome back for another special episode of What If Wednesday here. I know the FOMC meeting is going on, has been happening. People are excited. We're going to briefly touch upon it, but today we got a special guest, the one, the only, Your Biz. How's it going, bro?
Hey, it's going great. Thanks for having me on the show, Miguel. I love visiting the DCA family.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you coming on. I mean, who else to better have these conversations with than with you? I know you always have in-depth, viewpoints of what's happening, and when we gotta talk about some of this stuff, we gotta bring you on the channel. We're so, like I said before, we're gonna be talking about the FOMC, but it's only briefly. That's not what the show is about today. We're gonna be talking about Elon and how Elon, we all know he's acquired Twitter. Everyone's super bullish on Twitter and the crypto space over there, but little hint, right, that I've been hearing on a podcast a few days ago, which I can't remember the name of the podcast. I wish I could, so I could give him credit. But everything that Elon has ever gotten involved with, Tesla, SpaceX, and many other ventures, have ended up Starlink has ended up government contracting with the government. So is Twitter headed that way? Because he's also publicly said that he wants to create an alternative to WeChat. And we know WeChat is in China. They use pretty much entire social media account there attached to your banking system. You transfer money, you do all kinds of business on there, and the government is watching everything. So is that where he wants to make Twitter go, right? Is that the future of Twitter? But before we dive into that, FOMC, we went up what 25 basis points. How are you feeling about that?
Not so great. I'm a little bit concerned about, and you always have to do a disclaimer. And none of this is financial advice, but I have concerns about how much the manipulation there's been over the last couple of years. And I mean, now the FOMC meetings, whether they go up a few basis points, they go down a few basis points, the problems are already in motion. So at this point, it's almost like theater in a way, right? Yeah, sure, the economy will and markets will respond to some of those rate hikes or those reductions. The QE, the QT, it's only kind of a band-aid for the underlying problem that everything is debased. Like you can adjust the interest rates only so much before you have to just contend with the fact that we have debased the fundamental unit of account, the dollar. So like, yeah, for me, like Miguel, I don't feel super strongly about like, oh yeah, well this rate hike is going to do this thing, because I'm not a technician, right? I don't do technical analysis, but like on a more fundamental level, it bothers me we're in this mess to begin with, and that now we're being told that that ultimately there will need to be some quantitative tightening over time, and that people, retail in particular, right, wage earners, that they just have to deal with it, right? It was Jerome Powell who specifically went on record as saying that it bothered him that wage earners were getting more than a 2% annual increase in their earnings. That rat bastard actually said that publicly.
Yeah, dude.
Right? Like,
It's wild. It's wild what these people can say and do and just get away with it, right? I've also heard I know we're going to dive into the Elon thing, but we're going to be touching here briefly. I also want to get your thoughts on, I heard, what if we got rid of the Federal Reserve? The Federal Reserve manipulates interest rate hikes, going up, going down, money velocity, all these things, right? What if we got rid of them completely and just let the market decide? Do you think that is outside of obviously the power grab, right? The government not wanting to give up that power. Could a free market sustain interest rates and make sure that everything is under control, doesn't get out of hand without the Federal Reserve?
I mean, I think that the smaller experiments, the smaller American experiments where local currencies have tried, that they have succeeded enough to be a threat, which is why there was sort of regulation by enforcement on previous attempts, or regulation by outright reprisal. And I'm talking about things like Black Wall Street. I'm talking about the freedom dollar. I'm talking about some of these experiments over the last century that they did do pretty well. So, do I think free economies or free markets work? Yeah, I do. But would it happen today? The stakes are much higher. So I don't see any of the key stakeholders being willing to try a new experiment at the scale of all of Americans' wealth and livelihood. So
yeah, I completely agree with that. Right, the scales have changed. Things are so drastically, different now than when it was when we were just colonies. Right now we're in a global economy. Right, entire world is not just a small country dealing with itself. So I definitely don't see that happening. But it would definitely be interesting to see. Right, just hey, no federal reserve. Stop messing with the money. Right, I've mentioned that many times before. The Bitcoin standard. Why has all these currencies in history collapsed? Because of money manipulation, one way or another. That's what ended every currency in history of man. So what if we just didn't do that anymore and learned from our history and said, hey, let's not mess with the money, right? I think this 0.25 interest rate hike, the pivot, it was coming, right? I think people that are hyper focused on these things, yes, it makes sense if you're a trader, right? If you're a day trader, stuff like that, for your portfolio, for your earnings. But if you're just in crypto and you're a DCA, you're a long-term hauler, you're a long-term investor, you understand where these things are going, and whatever the FMOC is deciding today isn't going to really have a drastic effect of where Bitcoin is going in the next couple of years, where Ethereum is going the next couple of years, right? Where the whole crypto space in general is going in the next couple of years. So that's why this is titled, FMOC is a distraction. We are being distracted by these every single little federal interest rate hike. Are they going to be hawkish? Are they going to be dovish? And we're not really focusing on what are some bigger problems that are happening, which goes back to Elon, right? Elon having to deal with acquiring Twitter and now, saying that he wants Twitter, he wants a alternative to WeChat, and that everything he's dealt with before has become government contracts. Government agencies has been involved with all his companies. So, is Twitter being led to freedom of speech right now? But then, the catch 22 is gotcha. Now the government is surveillancing absolutely everybody that's on this platform. And he's starting to tie in your digital identity, right? Because they already have the NFT where you tie your account and you verify like, hey, yeah, I own this NFT. He wants to bring crypto payments, no matter what cryptocurrency it is. He wants to bring crypto payments onto the platform, which is going to tie your digital identity to your financial crypto identity as well, and track you even more. And what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that it's even more in depth than that. I think Crusader. I think the problem is way deeper, and it's that Twitter Blue already, or the current checkmark program for Twitter, it already ties in your traditional finance system, so it doesn't necessarily get a full picture of who's paying everywhere. You can get a third party to pay for that, or you can use some sort of privacy obfuscation layers there, but most people won't. Realistically, 99.8% of people who are going to use this service are just going to pull out the nearest credit card or debit card, and they're going to pay for their Twitter Blue account or Twitter Blue service using that. That means that they're already
Yep.
doxxed too. It's not just their crypto accounts. So now there's a positive correlation between those crypto accounts and those NFT holdings, as well as their real world identity, their real world payments. So, I mean, we're just shy of being asked to, like, whatever, submit a photo of our driver's license or something to prove identity, the way that Facebook already has for years. And Twitter is only like a step or two away from that, but they don't even need to at this point. If you just use the payment form of payment for Twitter Blue, and then you associate a crypto wallet, that's it. Like, you're doxxed. You've actually done your part to de-anonymize that much more of the network based on your connection graph and based on your transaction history from your crypto wallets. So, like, good job. Anybody who went ahead and got an actual NFT profile picture, you have, and if you're paying for Twitter Blue also to do that, you've actually helped to de-anonymize Ethereum that much more. You have ruined privacy for the majority of Ethereum users.
Dude, 100%, right? And one of the things about that as well is the .eth addresses. Like, when it came out, I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna get one." Keeper was like, "Yeah, dude, I'm getting one. Who you want?" And got his, right? But then I was like, "Wait a minute. I I could get one, but I don't think I'm gonna use any aliases actually tied to me. I would use something completely different, because then I'm just doxing myself. Everybody knows this is my wallet, right? I'm a content creator. They see my name. They go look me up on the Ethereum blockchain, and they can also see every single wallet that I've interacted with, and where I
Yeah.
send money to. Then I
Yes.
tie that to my Twitter identity, right? Because a lot of people tie their handles to the .eth address as well, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you dox yourself with the NFT. So now you have an address with a name that you can undeniably not say that was you. You've also have your NFT that's tied to your NFT to your Twitter profile, which shows it's you even more. And then, like you said, the Twitter Blue thing, you pay with it with a traditional credit card, whatever it is, ties you to the traditional system. So they've got all the ties from the traditional system, the Web3 space, your .eth address, and anything you've dealt with. And we already know that with Twitter, right? Shout out to Win Media. We've been working with them for our NFT project, Danger Close Alpha, and they showed us, right, the whole Twitter inner circle, your outer circle, and how you can go into different profiles, and each profile will show you their circle. So, hey, this guy's a big engager with you. Let's go check out his inner circle. Hey, these are all the people he interacts with, right? And it's a web. It is a web of people interacting with everybody. And if you start doxing a handful of people within those circles, with AI, with the technology that exists today, you can quickly start finding out who's who in the Web3 space and who's interacting with who and sending money where and reading DMs. And like you said, no more anonymous, right? On
Yeah.
Ethereum or on Twitter. And it's just like, what are we doing to ourselves here?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And the other problem that people don't think about is that they're thinking that all of what you and I are talking about so far, Miguel, is if Twitter is being honest and if Twitter is not compromised. Now let's imagine that Twitter is not being honest, right? Or they're not acting in good faith and they're actually just being, they're being puppeteered by some nation state level actor or some much larger shadow entity somewhere else, right? Some other corporate cabal, right, of bad people. Then we know that all of that correlated data that's going over to people who maybe don't have our best interests at heart. But even if they did have our best interests at heart, what happens when that database gets hacked? Because it only takes once, and then all of that
Yep.
goes into a much larger rolling database of correlated data that's been hacked from other platforms like Facebook, like Visa and Mastercard, or I'm sorry, it was it was one of the credit reporting agencies that also, or two, that totally got their data hacked as well. All that shit is correlated already, by the way, on the dark net. So all those data sets, they've already been rolled into a larger master data set. Now, as soon as Twitter does finally get hacked, because it will eventually happen, all that stuff goes in there as well. So, like, congratulations. A
There you
lot
go.
of your information is already out in the wind. When you volunteer that much more information to Twitter, then when they get hacked, not if, then it's that much worse in terms of our privacy.
Yeah, man. And somebody, I was in a Twitter space earlier this morning, and somebody said, well, your phone spies on you. All these things are listening to you. I'm not doing anything wrong. So I'm not worried about it. I don't really care. I'll give up my privacy for all the conveniences that are provided through the technology. What would you say to somebody that said that?
I think actions speak louder than words, Miguel. And you've seen in person, right, that I use a privacy oriented phone that that you can't see straight on, right? So I use a privacy shield on my phone. I use a version of Android that is de-Googled, so to speak. It doesn't actually run the main Google Play services on it. It doesn't run Gmail. It doesn't run Google Calendar, Google Maps.
Is that the Graphene OS? Is that what that is,
So
or
it's
is
a
it or a
variant of
different one?
Graphene OS called Calyx OS, and so it's
Okay.
very similar. And but I would run either one just fine. I'd be happy to run either one of those OSs on my phone, and I sleep so much better knowing that my phone is not actively listening to me. It also has much better sandboxing. So even running something that is like known spyware, like TikTok, if I were to run it on that phone, it it's incapable of spying on me when I don't have that application running because of how secure that operating system is. iOS doesn't necessarily do that, and plain Jane vanilla Android on, say, like a regular Pixel device or on a Samsung phone, it definitely doesn't do that. It phones home a lot and is always listening. So, like, to those people who are okay with that, like, I guess you go on and try to live your best life, do whatever you want to do. Like, but for my part, I'm not comfortable with that. I will not abide that. And in my home, my kids and my wife are not permitted to have spyware on their phones either. Because
So does your entire family run the same OS system on their phones?
yes, the majority does.
Yeah, at least your inner circle of family, right? Like
Yeah. But
your
I mean,
wife, your kids.
I also, I encourage all of my siblings, my parents, my in-laws, anybody in my personal sphere of influence. I ask everybody, like, hey, is it okay if I contact you on Signal or on some other encrypted messaging app? And I just, without like a hard sell, I'm always kind of advocating for people to just communicate more securely.
Yeah, definitely, right? Definitely. Encryption is very important, and it's one of the reasons why the government doesn't like it so much. Doesn't like that there are tools out here that can protect your privacy. But there's a few comments. Well, let's actually address this comment here real quick. So
Hmm.
Unforgettable says, but if you publicly give out any address for a giveaway for NFTs, airdrops, whatever, it can be tracked just the same. ETH domains just make it quicker to recognize. My thoughts are yes, right? Like if you're going to do a giveaway, whatever, you can make addresses public, right? But doesn't mean that you actually own that address, right? I could say, hey, I have this anonymous Twitter account. I'm doing a giveaway. I drop an address, right? Or I send an NFT from a certain address. Yeah, the NFT or the airdrop, I collaborated with somebody that's the actual owner. I'm not the actual owner of that. You can't prove that I'm the owner. But when you start tying in identification markers, right? Same handle name, same .eth address. You start tying in your traditional system, all it with your NFT. Then it's a lot harder to explain how that is not you, and that's how it's like an evil twin or something.
Yeah, no,
What are your
100%.
thoughts?
I think that's yeah, that's totally true. So I mean, you can drop in something that's a little more anonymized. But here's the other thing, Crusader. It's also true that if you wanted to, you could provision something of a burner account or a burner address on Ethereum,
Very
and
true.
then go snap up that vanity.eth address so that nobody else does. Because imagine if somebody else does, and they're like, no, you don't get it. I'm the real blockchain crusader. Look, I got proof on chain. Now that puts you in a
Yeah.
bad position too,
Somebody
right?
did
So,
take my blockchaincrusader.eth. Somebody did take
oh,
that, and they watched the channel. They watched the channel because they took Debate Crypto, they took Debate Crypto OG, they took Blockchain Crusader. They were vigilant on the show, and they know exactly what type of handles we used, and they snatched them up.
it's a cautionary tale then, I think.
Yep.
So for my part, I did go ahead and I did purchase some vanity addresses from the ENS, but that's because I don't want anybody else to steal them. Now, did I use my main Ethereum address? No. And did I use Tornado Cash before they got outlawed to fund that wallet? Yeah. So like I've got enough gas money in that account to be comfortable just doing basic minting for a while. And there are other tools that are not outlawed right by the US government that you can use to make your Ethereum holdings a little more private, a little more fungible. And you could always use those to fund a brand new wallet address and then put your vanity information on that. I think that's the only real recourse that we have moving forward, Crusader, is to do what's called poisoning the well, right? To give
Yeah.
junk data to social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Google, and just basically just try to confuse them, right? Like, what,
Dude,
what, what was
100%.
what was the name of your first pet? ET. Like, let them think whatever they want, right? But
Yeah.
but don't let them know the truth about you. Don't tell them everything.
Dude, exactly, right? And so I want to go back to the point about Elon. Do you think Elon is actually like this is his agenda, right? Win the hearts of the people, right? Be the people's champion, right? You see him walking around with the satanic metal suit or whatever night suit that he had for Halloween, right? He's known as a troll, so some people just oh yeah, he's just a troll, guys. He's just trolling, right? But he is at the dinner parties that we talk about. He is invited to those dinner parties. He does talk to high level people that are up to some crazy, crazy stuff. And like we've mentioned, all his companies have ended up in the hands of the government one way or another. Starlink, Tesla, and SpaceX. So he's got ties with the government, heavy ties with them. He knows them. Now he's acquired Twitter, right? The World Economic Forum came out. We talked about it last week about how he wasn't invited, and he's kind of like he's being pushed out of that circle, right? And he's out there pretending like, yeah, they're boring. I don't want to hang out with them, but they hang out at dinner, right? They talk. Is this his agenda? Is he like the Iron Man of our generation, right? That wins the hearts of the people, right? He's this public person that does all this crazy stuff and is changing the world, but there might be a little bit of a Ultron inside of this Iron Man here that is actually has an agenda to not so well for humanity. What do you think about that?
That's a really great analogy, but I guess the only question I would have is that if Elon Musk is Iron Man, then who is Captain America, right? Because there's that fundamental conflict, right? That's also art imitating life, right? They are
Yeah.
preparing us, right, for something along those lines, but it's still controlled opposition either way. You posit it's a decent theory, I think, as far as him maybe being some kind of a plant, winning hearts and minds, and then being able to leverage that social capital that he's gained in some other useful way for government entities. But I don't know. Sometimes it's weird. You can normally, it's more easy to explain some of the evils of the world through incompetence rather than malice a lot of times, other than when it's very obviously like also malice, right? We've got perfect examples of that throughout history of groups and dictators, right, who did horrible things, who genuinely were just trying to fool people. And then as soon as they had enough power to enact their evil plans, they went ahead and like went full blown evil. And I don't know that I read that on Elon Musk, but man, as an agent provocateur, as somebody who could get into people's hearts and minds and then surrender us over to the government at some future time, like a bargaining chip or something to save his own skin, maybe, right? Like maybe we're heading into uncertain times, and having wealth is not necessarily a guarantee that you'll be kept safe. Jeffrey Epstein had a lot of wealth, and he did a lot of the kinds of favors that his friends wanted at that time. Let's be very clear about that. Yeah, he was human scum, but he was human scum who was dealing in the sorts of things, right, that other human scum like. So, like, I still want to see that John list. You know what I mean? We still haven't seen who visited, right, or why. But like, and I'm not equating Epstein to Musk, but what I'm saying is that level, they play games that we cannot even imagine. So it's hard for me to guess, like, yeah, is Elon Musk a good guy or a bad guy? I think it's way more complicated than that. I think it's not that it's like different shades of gray or whatever, but I think that what he's going to do 18 months from now, he doesn't even know. He has like some rough ideas, but I don't think he even knows what he's going to do like 6 months from now, let alone 18 or 5 years from now. I see Elon Musk as a very complicated figure. And I'll say this. When he says stuff, if I agree with it, it's like, okay, cool, thumbs up or thumbs down, but I keep it very topical. I do not worship the man, but I'm not like a net detractor. I'm not going to, be some hater. I view him as like, cool, he did some really great things, but he's not my moral guide. He's not my priest. He's not my lawyer. He's not my attorney, like whatever. Like he's not going to be the guy that tells me exactly how to think and what to feel. So I do try to just limit my exposure to whether or not he's influential. Because we saw what he did with Bitcoin. We saw what he did with Dogecoin. And then with his influence over Dogecoin, what that then did to Bitcoin, right? So
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah. Just
I was just going to bring that up about how BitBoy last year, right, exposed all this stuff that he was doing. People were, hitting Elon Musk real hard about all the trash, and Elon was hated for quite a bit of time. And then now he acquired Twitter, bringing all this freedom of speech everywhere. And everybody's like, yeah, go Elon, right? Elon's the best. Everybody already quickly forgot, right? Amnesia of what happened a year ago with Bitcoin and Dogecoin, all these things. And everybody's all bullish on Elon again. But yet again, we have like this short-term memory where we forget that just a short period of time ago, right? A lot of government agency contacts, right? A lot of dinner parties, right? Satanic suits, and talking about wanting to be a WeChat competitor. And it's like, what does WeChat do? It centralizes your digital identity, your financial identity to a government agency, so they can completely surveillance everything you do. And the minute you step out of line, they ding you, right? And why would he that be what he's striving for if he is striving for freedom, right? Freedom has to be decentralized. It can have small centralized entities, but it can't be the main focus, centralization, especially with the government. But he has a lot of government ties that people like to forget about a lot, and people just have short memory spans, man. They just can't compute a lot of information that just from 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. Yeah, even like having him be on Joe Rogan and smoke whatever that smoke whatever he smoked, right, on Joe Rogan's show. It's like, oh, that's like a legit violation of your contract with the Air Force. Like, you're going to be in trouble, and he totally was. But
it won the people's heart.
And was it for show, right? Like, was it for, yeah, I'm a bad boy, and then I got my wrist slapped by the Air Force because I hate the government? And it's like, dude, like, half of your
all you do is work with the government.
Yeah, right. And the subsidies that you get and stuff. I was like, that it can't possibly be true that you hate the government. So, I hear what you're saying overall, like having to be maybe a little bit disingenuous, at least, that he's the people's hero, the way people like talk about him. Yes. And that's why I'm so measured, frankly, is that it's like, dude, how do you make somebody who's a multi-billionaire and is able to do the things that this guy does? How do you actually humanize him and relate to him? Because I don't think I could ever relate to the guy. I have no illusions about that.
how imagine this. Imagine when his Neuralink system comes out and people start getting, you know, microchipped in the head, right? With this, and I understand the benefits, right? People that are paralyzed will be able to walk. People that won't be that can't communicate will be able to communicate, right? There's a tons of medical benefits that will help humanity. But quick pause, quickly to the other side of that, the flip of that coin is, right? Imagine now getting Chat GPT inserted into your brain instantaneously, because that's what's coming, right? You have a chip in your head. What's coming next? The AI entering that chip to, help you process faster instead of typing on your computer or on your phone to Chat GPT anything or googling anything. Just boom, instantly in your head. You ask yourself a question, Chat GPT gives you an answer. And we know that
Yeah.
Chat GPT is woke, right? We know
Yeah.
that it's pretty liberal
AF.
to the left.
Yeah.
So
Woke AF.
so what happens when that happens, right? And that's the thing that he's working on. He's talked about the dangers of AI, but he also has talked about the merging of mankind with AI. And it just goes back to all these little things that you start connecting the dots of what Elon is working on. And it's like he's leading the forefront for, tons of government intervention in people's lives, identification of people, surveillance, and at the same time, like the transhumanism agenda. He's working
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
And
No, I'm
he's
not
the forefront guy.
I'm not a fan of the transhumanist agenda at all, and for personally, right? But like you're saying, as far as Elon Musk's involvement in it, I don't know that he's actually. I don't know that I've followed enough of his content to know exactly what his take and stance on transhumanism is. Like
He
whether
he
he's a
believes he
so-called.
believes that AI and the only way to avoid an AI apocalypse, right, where AI completely takes over and humanity is thrown to the wayside, is by merging with AI, so that we can control AI at that extent, and it can keep us right. We can become a symbiotic relationship versus without that relationship, AI is like we don't have any use for you, so like see you later, and then the Terminator apocalypse happens.
Yeah, that's not how relationships work though between overly like super highly intelligent beings and lesser beings. That's not at all how it works. You become domesticated, right? Or the lesser intelligence becomes domesticated by the higher intelligence. It
Yeah.
never works out that there's like a perfectly symbiotic relationship. I mean, at best, throughout humanity's experience, I think one of the best like examples that we have is humans and canines, right? Where we did domesticate them and we did start to breed them. Um, Magic Internet Money saying, admiring
Sick bucket
the
hat.
trip, huh? Appreciate that. Yeah, the wife was like, "Hey, you need something other than just baseball caps because you look like I don't know a kid. Grow up, get a bucket hat." So yeah. Anyway, them's fighting words in our home. I was like, you know what? Just for that like that alone, I'm gonna go out and get like a hair bun, a scrunchie or something instead, just cause. I tried it, didn't work, man. I was like, I don't know what's wrong. I think this scrunchie's defective, but so like, so yeah. I mean, as far as there being some kind of like a really great plan to merge our consciousness with AI, Miguel, I don't see that actually working. I see that being at best like the relationship between canines and humans, where maybe we become domesticated, maybe we look up to this thing in an admiring and longing way, but realistically, we're just trying to get table scraps from whatever the heightened plane of existence that AI is living at that time, the way that our dogs beg from us, right? You know that if you stop
Yep.
feeding your dog for 3 days, like you're not friends anymore.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know if
over.
you heard that, right? Like,
It's over.
yeah,
He will eat you.
exactly, right? And I mean, the issue with us is that we can say that to AI, but like, how are we going to eat them, right? Like, "Oh, we're going to unplug you."
Yeah.
Well, what's that can do to us at that point? If we have these advanced systems for environmental cleanup, or possibly our agricultural systems are entirely dependent on AI, which we've already seen, by the way. TensorFlow has been used successfully for several years to improve crop yields in various parts throughout the world. First farmer was a Japanese guy who just on his own was like, I'm going to teach myself development, right? Coding. And then he got into the tensor libraries back then before the models were really advanced. And he trained it on how to improve crop yield on his farm. It's like super
Wow.
inspirational. Like it's the best possible use case, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to go so far beyond that with artificial general intelligence, and that's just not going to be necessary anymore. That farmer's input will not be needed And once we start pairing that with robotic systems that can carry out more useful tasks, like where's our threat of like, I'm going to eat master going to be, right? Like the dog example.
Yeah.
We won't have it. How do we unplug it if unplugging that is functionally unplugging our own life support, right? Like we're
Exactly.
going to have serious problems.
Yeah,
So
it definitely, you have good points there. Like the whole AI merging is definitely way more complicated than what it seems, right? Because it's like saying, okay, we got to unplug the internet now. The internet has gone too far. That's not going to happen, right? The internet goes down, the entire global economy goes down. Like
Yeah.
it's done, right? Nobody's trading. You can't even go to Home Depot or auto, any car shop or anything to buy, and you can't buy a candy bar at Winn Dixie, right? If you don't have a computer in front of you, then nobody takes down notes and says, "Hey, this guy bought this. Here's your change." People can't even do basic change math on the registers. So it's the same concept, right? Once we get to that level of advance with AI, you can't just unplug it, because if you do, it's like, okay, we're just gonna throw the world into the dark ages now because it's over. I want to quickly pivot here from the crazy AI thing back to the topic of how the FOMC is a distraction, right? One of the big distractions that have been happening lately is, like I mentioned, the egg shortages, right? Egg shortages, we spoke about it in a Twitter space last night. Egg shortages are happening, but since before the egg shortages happened, we've been talking since 2022 about over 100 food facilities in the United States, just magically shut down. I'm not even going to say how, but they just shut down, right? It just happened, right? So supply chains have been rough, and we've been talking about food shortages. We've been talking about prices of food continuing to go up, right? So that being said, this weekend, we already know the egg shortage is happening. Eggs are like at $8, $10, depending where you're at, right? And depending what quality of eggs you're buying. Now, over the weekend, it was pointed out to me yesterday on the Twitter space that it was not just any chicken facility; it was the largest chicken facility in the United States. Also, just went up in fireworks apparently, and just shut down. So with over 100,000 chickens in it, and there goes more egg shortages problems. We talk about the FOMC, the inflation rate, right? The interest rate hikes. People, the inflation is slowing down. Yeah, the rate of inflation is slowing down, but inflation is not actually going down. Prices of food are still going to keep going up. And with these shortages, how much worse is it going to get? What are your thoughts about this whole shortage issue?
Well, Miguel, here's where I feel like I love that you guys invite me back onto the show with the frequency that you do. I really appreciate that that we share mics together on this topic, because preparation is everything, and we've been staying pretty consistent with that messaging on my channel since 2019, since we first started to see the onset of all this of all the global, right, like shutdowns. We started to see that, and since before that time too. Preparation is going to look an awful lot like handling your own water, your own water reclamation at home. So knowing how to purify water, make it potable, make it drinkable, make it useful for your
Yep.
family, knowing how to create heat, not necessarily electricity, but knowing how to create heat with sustainable fuel supplies, knowing how to harvest your own food, regardless of how you eat, knowing how you can source supply chains. If you did have local grocers go down, or the other like local supply chain that you normally rely on, having some kind of an alternate. And then also, yes, having food supplies, right? Some kind of food supplies, and then to backstop all of that, right? If things should get very dire, investing in lead and brass, right? So like having everything that you need, including having friends in your neighborhood, right? Nothing replaces a good mutual aid society where you live, because you can only you can only sleep with one eye open for so long before you just have to make friends with your neighbors.
Yeah.
Right. Like we see all these movies that glorify it being some other way. And it's like, nah, man, just be
Yeah,
friends with your neighbors. It pays dividends. Like
yeah.
really.
It's like Game of Thrones says, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives.
Yes, sir. So like we've been talking about that for quite some time and just been staying consistent on that. And people say, yeah, nothing's ever going to happen. You guys are paranoid. It's like, yeah, but bro, things are
It's been
happening right
happening.
now.
Yep.
Could things possibly get worse? Yes, they could possibly get worse. Could these rate hikes or rate reductions, could they affect us in a like extremely volatile fashion? Could we see almost like a solar flare, right? But in the financial systems, yes. If you were priced out of being able to fill your tank with gas, if you thought that was coming 3 weeks from now, what would you do to prepare? Most people don't remember that kind of problem from the OPEC days, right? But in the 1970s, that was a very real risk. On cheap gas days, people would line up for miles to go and fill up jerry cans so they could prepare for when there were spikes and fluctuations in the price of that particular necessary supply. So what happens now when the writing's on the wall with eggs? What's next?
Yeah.
Will it be in the dairy sector? If you consume dairy, will there be some other kind of supply chain when it comes to grains that are possibly supplied domestically? And like nobody's thinking about this until it gets too late. But we've been pretty consistent for months or years about how you need to at least have basic supplies in order. So a prediction, man, I can't make a prediction. The problem is, and the opportunity is, Miguel, nobody can. Nobody can make a perfect prediction. That's why you prepare. So
Exactly.
that's all I'm going to say about it is just preparedness.
Yeah,
just be prepared.
Like 100%, right? The thing that worries me the most is like, right, I'm from Cuba, right? I swam over here, right? I did the whole triathlon thing, right? I ran on land, I swam, I almost flew too, everything, the whole shebang. And in Cuba, right, the poor people's food, right? No matter how poor you are, at least you would have a plate of rice and eggs, right? That's poor people food, right? And it's like now eggs are becoming a luxury. So now we got no eggs, just white rice. What's next, right? The whole grain situation, right? We know the whole situation with Russia, Ukraine happening, being a huge exporter. Europe is having a lot of problems with that over there itself, and there's tons of supply chain problems. Food pricing is continuously going up, right? It's getting more expensive. It's going to continue going up because interest rates are not going to stop. Inflation has not stopped. It's just slowing down, but it is continuously going up. So your food prices will keep going up. And it's like, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for when eggs are $20 a box, right? Are you waiting for when you can't even buy half a sack of rice anymore? We know the US dollar is collapsing, right? Slowly but surely, at one point or another, it's going to happen, whether it's a soft landing or a combust. One way or another, it's going down. They can only keep it on life support for so long before nobody can pay the power bills, and then they got to unplug it. So
somebody's calling
preparedness.
you out. Somebody's calling out your Cuba immigration story. They claim you use a raft. I don't know.
No. I didn't use a raft. All Olympic, just Olympic swimmers in my entire family. We all swam.
It's only 90 miles. Come on, you got me. Si se puede. Extra every mile. He's like, si se puede. América, siempre para adelante, nunca para atrás.
Guys, smash the likes if you haven't smashed the likes just yet. Share out the live. But yeah, being prepared, right? I've been telling my family since the whole fog around the world started, and I saw where things were headed. I was like, hey, things are going to get bad. They might not be bad right now. They might not be bad in 6 months, but things are going to slowly get worse. And that's the I think that's the worst part of it, that it's slow. So it's such a slow dragging out effect that you become kind of numb to it. You become numb to the high gas prices. You become numb to the high food prices. And you're like, it's not so bad. I'm still paying. I can still have money at the end of the month. I still, I'm there. It's okay. It's okay. It'll get better. But it's like, hey, 6 months have gone by. Hey, 2 years have gone by. Hey, 4 years have gone by. It's not getting better. It's not. So
yeah.
at
No,
what point are you
it's
going
like
to start getting ready?
it's like the frog in the pot of boiling water, right? Most people don't realize that we're already beyond cooked. Like it's been that bad for the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, the fog around the world has been the boiling point. It's been getting hotter all the way up to that point. We've been boiling for 2 years. So if you can't figure that out, then like, I mean, I don't know what it's going to take, right? It's a bad analogy, but I don't know what it's going to take for you to figure out that you're already in the boiling water. You're already cooking to death, right? Like, so like,
Yeah, dude.
take a step back, do what you have to zoom out and and take real stock, real attention of the situation that you're in. Like it is beyond crisis mode. People need to understand that if they don't already.
I want to answer. Thank you for the super chat here. Says, do you think? I don't understand the question. Do you think vegan do not have energy or protein? Oh, do I think if vegans do not have energy or protein? Yes, vegans have energy and protein, but the protein and the bioavailability of a lot of vegan foods are not the same as the natural counterparts of animal protein. That is scientific. That's not just my opinions on it. Mankind has been eating meat his entire life. I understand there's different people, right? Some people swear by the vegan diet that for their body it does wonders, and they just can't eat meat. I know somebody personally that can't eat meat. When they do, they just feel terrible, and they are on a vegan diet and they're okay, and that's fine. But those are exceptions to the rule, not the actual rule, right? So the whole food situation is different. Eating proteins, right? Like animal proteins is important, and I think it's very important. It's just what makes the human body what it is, right? You need to eat cholesterol to produce testosterone and to produce other hormones in your body, not just for males but also for females. And you're not going to get that from how many avocados you're going to have to eat to get the same level of cholesterol than just eating some fried eggs, right? And the agenda behind it is what worries me, right? Because I don't care that you're vegan. I don't care that people choose to be vegan and don't want to eat meat. That's fine, that's cool. But the agenda of, hey, you have to stop eating meat because the world is collapsing if you don't, or hey, you have to stop eating meat because apparently they did a whole study now. Joe Rogan talked about it and he posted it on his Instagram. I don't know if you've seen it. I think actually you did see it. I showed it to you last week when we were here talking about the World Economic Forum briefly. There's this chart that shows how ground beef and whole fried eggs are worse for you than ice cream cones and Lucky Charms, right? Along with a bunch of other different foods. There's an entire study that is telling you, do not eat fried eggs, do not eat ground meat, but it is okay for you to eat ice cream cones and Lucky Charms. Those are better alternatives.
I
That's
can
what I
tell you,
have a
Crusader,
problem with.
my life experience tells me that every male who I know who actually would believe that doesn't have offspring, and I'll leave you to make your own inferences there as to what that means. They definitely don't have offspring, and if they do, shame on them because the line is going to end right there. You can't raise a real generation of strong people on a diet like that.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. It's the agendas that get attached to these things, right? I don't care if you're a carnivore. I don't care if you're a vegan. But when they start pushing these agendas on a certain food group and start pushing you in a certain way, they tell you processed foods are bad for you, right? Don't eat processed foods. But then they tell you, come eat our Beyond Burger, which is processed, who knows what oils mixed in with soy and a bunch of other crap to make it taste like meat. But I thought you said meat was bad. Why do I want something that tastes like meat in the first place? But that's a long rant. It's just another way of saying there's a lot of things happening around the world right now beyond the FOMC meeting. The FOMC meeting is a distraction. If you are a long-term investor in crypto, unless you're a day trader, if you're a long-term investor, the FOMC meeting right now doesn't mean jack squat. We're, in my belief, I believe what BitBoy says, right, that we are still on the 4-year cycle. The 4-year cycle is continuing, and nothing is gonna derail that train just yet. And we're perfectly fine for the next Bitcoin halving, the next bull market to come around. And if you understand those things and you understand the concepts of Bitcoin and where they're going, then why are we so stressed out about every single FOMC meeting? Every single person that I know as a content creator, and people that I don't even know that are content creators, but I've seen them, are live. We're live today between 1 and 2:30 to talk about the FOMC meeting. Everybody, just everybody. It's like, there's only like 100 people in the crypto space right now, right? And there are 50 content creators all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till all that, like, till the dust settles and I can go like see where the bodies are lying out. I'll go do triage right on the living after all the dust settles there from that meeting. I'm not about to go jump in and deal with taking an elbow to the face while everybody else is trying to get this coverage, man. I'm
Yeah.
with you. It's one of those things where we get irrationally exuberant over like one or two things that this group of people says, and we got into all the problems that we have right now financially because we listened to them in the first place, right? Like, just
Yep.
stop listening to them
And now
and
everybody's
opt
like
out.
this attached to a screen every time they come on. Like, okay, the meeting is happening on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. They're gonna tell us the future of Bitcoin. Everybody listen up. It's like Jim
Yeah.
Cramer, right? The other day, sell. This is terrible. Now, like 2 days ago, goes, we're in a bull market. It's time to buy the dip. Bro, you were just telling people to sell right before the pump. Now we've pumped massively, and now you're telling people to buy because we're in a bull market now. It's like, my
Yeah.
lord. And people listen to these guys. People religiously listen to these people, and they swear that everything in the crypto space is tied to the words of these people. These people speak and they bring it into like they manifest it to life. And I think that's all a big distraction. I think there's a lot of more things happening in the crypto space in the United States and around the world in general that can definitely be more important, should be paying attention to, whether it's for your portfolio or not, than just the FOMC meeting talking about the same thing. Are they dovish? Are they hawkish? Are they going up 25%? Are they going up 50%? You know, what are your thoughts as we're closing out here?
No, man, I totally agree on that, and I think you got a comment coming in. That's funny. Their username is also the name of an encrypted chat application. So Tox says, "You make more money doing the opposite of what Kramer says." Inverse Kramer ETF. He's not wrong, man. Some of these talking heads on TV, they're perfect counter indicators. And the FOMC, they're not exactly like a counter indicator. You can draw some meaningful conclusions as far as the price of all these markets, because they are correlated a bit to what the FOMC and what the Fed says. But at the same time, like, dude, they're not going to help you prepare in any other meaningful way. Miguel, at the risk of sounding like a religious zealot, the end is near, right? The end of money, the way that we understand it, the end of markets, the way that we remember them from 5 years ago, it's near. We have to have preparations in other places. We have to opt out. We have to have other things in place that preserve our family, preserve our capital, our ability to move forward in the world, regardless of whether or not there's an interest rate hike. So yeah, on the one hand, day trader, like, good for you. You figured out what your next like 2 weeks of strategy is, maybe. But everybody else, like, nah, man, if you don't have something in the pantry, if you don't have any kind of a food pantry or food storage, if you don't have your water purification system in place, if you don't have your water storage purification system in place, if you don't know what your resources are to be able to bug out and get your car at least 500 miles away from your location, if you really needed to, get on that, like, immediately, yesterday. Figure it out.
Dude, 100%, right? And like talking about how the financial system is changing forever. I've talked about before on Twitter Spaces how Lebanon, there's a few other countries that were like having bank runs and banks are limiting cash, right? Yesterday, I talked about Bitcoin hitting $38,000 because apparently in Nigeria, they limited all cash withdrawals, right? The government literally limited all cash withdrawals, and people were fleeing to Bitcoin in that country, and that country was at a premium price for Bitcoin. And yesterday was announced that today, February 1st, Lebanon was going to devalue their currency by 90%. You get a 48-hour notice that, hey, you can't withdraw your money, but by the way, it's going down 90% tomorrow. Like,
jeez,
dude, 90% of your wealth just gone. And that's what happens when you're on centralized entities, right? These banks we talk about now your crypto, now your keys, now your coins, right? And keeping our crypto off central exchanges. The majority of people keep all their money in the bank account thinking that the bank is safe because it's FDIC insured, but they are a centralized entity. When they shut off the doors to get the money out, you can't get it out. And if something like this happens in other countries where they just say, hey, the currency is getting devalued by X amount, you can't do anything about it. There goes your position. Instead of having true ownership, right? Having a crypto wallet, a hardware wallet where you have true ownership. Nobody can lock you out of that except for yourself if you forget your own passwords, right? So nobody can lock you out. Nobody can devalue it for you. So I think that people need to prepare for this. People need to get ready financially and have true ownership of their own assets to continue fighting this thing of, centralized entities just derailing currencies and just saying, hey, it sucks to be you, but this is what's happening now. Get over it. It's like it's destroying people's lives to get your whole net worth devalued by 90% from one day to the next. So if people are not getting prepared, I don't know. I don't know what indicator will get them excited about preparing someday.
You're right. Indicators, warnings. I mean, you just mentioned Lebanon, and prior to that, we've got the issue with some other countries that have already gone through this full devaluation. Sri Lanka going entirely woke, right? Trying to go after a much higher, essentially like political woke score and going totally broke. You got El Salvador that tried to opt out. The IMF tried to threaten them, but they're doing great. They're one of the few countries that's actually doing great. What did they do? They opted out with Bitcoin. I mean, we got so many warnings, so many examples and so many warnings, man.
Dude, exactly, right? It's like, and it goes back to the FOMC meeting. Why are we worried about FOMC and how it's going to affect Bitcoin today when we know where Bitcoin is headed in the next couple of years? We know what's happening, what Bitcoin can provide for you besides the price action. It's the ownership, it's the asset. It's one of the only assets, right, along with other cryptocurrencies. I'm just talking about crypto in general, that is unconfiscatable. It cannot be confiscated from you, right? Real estate can be taken from you in a blink of an eye, right? Anything else that's an asset can be taken from you. Money can be frozen. Your stocks can be taken away from you in a blink of an eye, and all these assets are gone. But when it comes to crypto, it's a whole lot harder to confiscate those things from you, right, than anything else. So that's the only true asset that's really valuable, I believe, in my eyes. And shout out to the top G for that one, right? Talking about how Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are the only real non-confiscatable assets that matter out there. But he was confiscated because he's
Yeah, because he chose to live near the wrong government. That's the other thing, man. Like, yeah, it's all compromised. Like, choose wisely.
Yeah,
On that
he
note,
talked about it, right? He's like, oh, why would I live in a country where I can't access corruption? All governments are corrupt, so I might as well live in one where I can access that corruption with the level of wealth that I have. Well, there you go, my friends. No matter how well connected you are, you didn't learn this a thing from Jeffrey Epstein. No matter how connected you are, no matter how much money you have, when you no longer suit them, they will come for you. So,
yeah, man.
any closing remarks here before we close off for the day?
No, I think we laid it out pretty clearly, man. If anybody in your audience is not taking a good hard look in the mirror and figuring out that that the situation is pretty bad and there's only one person in their life that can fix it, maybe they will know.
Dude, 100%. It's been a great conversation. Biomex, thank you for the super chat. Says best episode to date. Mind your biz, you rock. DCA, let's go. Dude, it's been a great conversation. I love having these conversations with you. So, guys, like always, make sure that you are questioning everything, trusting nothing, and like always, what's the end here? I forgot.
You
Oh,
said
wait.
something about hodl.
Yeah, it's hodling. Hodling like it's hot, baby. That's right. See you guys. Till next time.